I don't know about the rest of you, but when I think of the new Batman adventures, my first reaction is, it's not as good as Batman the Animated Series, except for Growing Pains, and Mad Love, and Legends of the Dark Knight, and Chemistry, until I've practically listed every episode, and easily one of the best is Over the Edge. For those that haven't seen it, spoilers ahead, but it's essentially a dream episode. The audience is made to believe that Batgirl has died, pushed off of a skyscraper by the Scarecrow, and her father goes on a rampage to bring Batman in. Now, as soon as you mention the Scarecrow, the possibility that this is all a hallucination brought on by his fear gas becomes likely. And yes, that is what's happening, but it is not Batman's nightmare, it's Batgirl's. This episode has a very clear message about fears and the likelihood of them coming true. Now, I have seen some criticism of the show that for as prominent as Batgirl is in the series, she didn't get an episode of her own. Robin had at least 2, Nightwing had 3, but Batgirl was always relegated to a supporting role. And I want to push back on that idea because while she's only in a few minutes of Over the Edge, the fact that the majority of this episode takes place inside of her mind reveals so much about the character. Sure, she technically only has little screen time, but this entire story is about her and her worldview. When other people have been exposed to Scarecrow's fear toxins, the results have been very different. Some people see spiders, face their own mortality, or in Batman's case, face a more abstract fear of disappointing their loved ones. He has also seen Gotham brought to ruin. But Barbara's fear is far more measured. It's not some apocalypse or a villain taking over the world. It's everything she knows to be true being upended. Yes, her death is part of it, potentially revealing a belief that so long as she is around and has a say in things, the status quo will remain. But it's absolutely about what happens when she loses control. And her death scene is really powerful. The broadcast standards and practices of the times wouldn't have allowed them to show her hitting the ground, and to be honest, showing something as blunt as that really goes against the creative team's style. Instead, they opted to be more creative. We see Barbara tumble over the edge, but then the shot cuts to Commissioner Gordon and Harvey Bullock in a squad car when something lands on top of it. Placing the shot within the car obscures our view, but we know exactly what's happened. When she dies, her father discovers that his perfect daughter had been hiding her secret life from him, and he lashes out in anger towards Batman. And I think it was a really smart decision to open the episode in the aftermath of Barbara's death. It's a strong hook, seeing the GCPD breaching the Batcave and placing the Batfamily under siege. This is pretty much the opposite of what you'd normally see in an episode. And Gordon is taking no prisoners. I mean, they even brought a bazooka with them. While this all may seem chaotic, it's actually very precise. Her nightmare constructs a worst-case scenario that's plausible, showing how keeping a secret from her father weighs on her conscience. And that is a very rational fear. She knows that it wouldn't just break his heart to learn her secret, but it would also have a major impact on his reputation and career if it got out. This nightmare vision tells us exactly what Barbara thinks of her friends and family, and like any good nightmare, there are elements of truth. She sees her father as a relentless crusader, someone that bends the rules to achieve what he thinks is right, which is accurate given his cooperation with Batman and his willingness to disregard procedure. He's very much an ends justify the means kind of man. But she frames it as a sign of his dedication to the law. He even runs out on Barbara's funeral to catch Batman. Then there's Harvey Bullock, who is quick to assign blame to Batman, calling him a murderer. Yes, Scarecrow pushed her over the edge, but she wouldn't have been in that position were it not for Batman. It's a very Bullock-like logical argument to make, as seen in earlier episodes like I Am the Night. Likewise, she astutely identifies Alfred as a protector, someone that puts himself in danger to save Batman's life. When you consider that Alfred has dedicated the majority of his own adult life to Bruce Wayne, even though they technically aren't blood, this is very much in character. What's interesting is how she sees Dick Grayson. He comes to the rescue, zooming in on a jet ski to disable the police boats and help Batman get away. Despite Barbara's death, he's still smiling and he playfully gestures to Batman and Robin as a way of saying, "You're welcome." In her eyes, nothing can knock him off his stride, which is a stark contrast to how he behaves in the rest of the series. Note that he doesn't blame Batman for what happened to Barbara, even though Batman blames himself. And that's how she sees Batman. He carries a heavy burden, is melancholic and apologetic, but he still carries on. And then there's Robin, the overwhelmed child who disappears into the crowd and isn't seen again. It's all very dark and serious, but there are some light moments. Take, for instance, the comedic scene featuring the villains. Harley Quinn, Mad Hatter, the Riddler, and the Ventriloquist appear on television to announce that they're suing Bruce Wayne for the emotional damage he's caused them over the years. Yes, it's an amusing scene that's there to break the tension and prevent the episode from being too bleak, and it includes a dig at O.J. Simpson's lawyer Johnny Cochran, which really dates it. But again, it reveals something about Barbara. Deep down inside, part of her must think that Batman creates his own chaos. This echoes the episode Trial, where the villains try to hold him accountable, although they come to the conclusion that even if Batman had never existed, they would still be awful people. However, there is one villain's inclusion in this episode that really confounds me, and it's not so much that he's there, it's the way that he's used after this episode. When Hamilton Hill tells Gordon that he expects his resignation over the revelations about his daughter, Gordon calls in the big guns. Bane is released from prison specifically to help capture Batman, and I don't take exception to this. Bane is more than a match for Batman physically. Gordon can match him tactically, so on paper, it sounds like a good idea. But what I can't get past is the new design. This is the first time that Bane's more BDSM-inspired outfit appears in the show. It's so new that Bane even says he's pleased that Batman remembers him. This suggests that this is the first time that Batman has seen Bane since they last met. Now, I'm not criticising the design, it's pretty memorable, but it exists entirely in the imagination of Barbara Gordon. So why does he look that way in Superman the Animated Series and Batman Mystery of the Batwoman? It probably won't bother most viewers, but this is the kind of thing that lingers in my mind. You could just write it off as an error on Barbara's part, or just a production quirk. Reusing an asset but not remembering or caring that it was taken from a fantasy. Ultimately, it's not that important, and I bet most of you have never really thought about it. Despite the chaos and the conflict between Batman and Commissioner Gordon, there is still hope in Barbara's dream. When Bane inevitably betrays Gordon and knocks him over the edge, Batman intervenes. He may not have been there in time to save Barbara, but this time he offers Gordon his hand and begs him to accept his help, for Barbara's sake. However, that hope is short-lived as Bane ends up knocking the two of them over the edge, leaving them to fall to their deaths, just as Barbara wakes up. While the events of the episode were just a nightmare, they still had an impact on Barbara. Her fears are brought to the front and centre of her mind, and she cannot live with the guilt of what might happen to her father if her secret gets out. So she decides to come clean to him. But the real beauty of this episode is that Gordon stops her, telling her that he cannot officially know what he already knows, and he loves her nonetheless. And this is a really beautiful sentiment, not so much the fatherly love, but what it says about our fears. In many cases, the things that we fear exist entirely within our heads. Fear is rarely a prediction. It's a story we tell ourselves, rehearsed over and over until it feels inevitable. I know I do this, and I bet many of you do too. We imagine the worst case scenario with cinematic clarity, every reaction, every consequence, and every word said and unsaid. We play it out like a scene we've already lived through, but most of the time that scene never happens. We fear that if we tell the truth we'll be rejected, that one honest conversation will fracture a relationship beyond repair. We fear that one mistake will define us, that a single misstep will echo forever, twisting how the world sees us. We fear disappointing the people we love, that their image of us is fragile and one revelation will shatter it completely. To varying degrees, we all fear that the truth will change everything, but Over the Edge says otherwise. What if people who matter already understand us more than we think? What if the truth deepens a relationship? What if the moment we've built up in our minds simply passes softer than expected? Barbara spends an entire nightmare watching her world collapse because of the truth. But when she finally wakes up, it turns out that the secret that had been weighing on her wasn't so secret after all. Her father doesn't turn on her or fly into a rage or even fall apart. He simply chooses to love and looks the other way, which is so in keeping with his character that it's absolutely perfect. Barbara believed that telling the truth would destroy her father. In reality, he was far more capable of handling it than she gave him credit for. That doesn't mean her fear was irrational. Given what she knows about him, it may even make sense. But the episode draws a clear distinction between something being understandable and something being true. And that's why the ending works. It doesn't dismiss fear outright, it doesn't pretend that consequences don't exist. Instead, it shows that our perception of those consequences is often exaggerated. In Barbara's mind, the truth leads to collapse. In reality, it leads to a compromise. Gordon knows, but chooses not to act on it. He finds a way to reconcile both sides of the situation without destroying either. So while the nightmare never actually happens, it still reveals something important, not about what will happen, but about what Barbara believes could happen. And more importantly, it shows that what we fear will happen and what actually happens are often two very different things. Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Reber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel memberships are just $1.99 a month and give you early access to my essays, custom emojis, and your name featured on my members end screen, which has been rolling for a little while now. Huge thanks to everyone who's already part of this. You've helped to make these videos possible. If you want to see your name up here too, join the channel now. And while I have your attention, please consider checking out my other channel, Serum Lake Comics, where I talk about mostly DC comic books. Next time. I'll be back on Friday to discuss the overwhelming winner of my recent Justice League villain poll, the young girl who was responsible for one of the best Batman moments in all media. Yes, we're going to be talking about Ace of the Royal Flush Gang. And next Monday it'll be time to return to my Batman the Brave and the Bold character poll to talk about a supernatural villain, Jim Craddock, the Gentleman Ghost. Hope to see you then.